Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another video. All right, so I posted a little snippet from one of the earlier creators, Keeping Up with Creators, and it was me kind of going off a little bit about the value of having a social media husband.
I recognize what an asset a supportive partner is.
And we don't have to make it gender specific. Really, it's about, I think it is so incredibly valuable and underrated to have somebody who loves you deeply, who is completely invested in your success, who maybe lives with you to help you if you're an influencer or a creator or a creative, get your shit together, okay? And I see it all over social media. So many of my favorite creators, the women in particular who are most productive, killing the game, I feel like their key to success is not only being incredibly talented, beautiful, brilliant, charismatic, it's also having that in-house support. I did not realize that was going to be controversial, okay? But it is. And for so many different reasons, particularly when it comes to Black women, under that video, one of my favorite creators, Hallease, posted, hey, if you want to talk about this, I'm free. Of course, I want to talk about it. So I'm super, super excited to have Hallease here. Hi, Hallease.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
All
Thanks.
right.
Hi,
Thank you, first of
Patreon
all,
people.
so much. Yeah, for offering to have this conversation, because I feel like sometimes people are a little like iffy about discussing their relationships and the ins and outs. But we're all here, like, this is a supportive community. Like, it's not nasty.
I'm good with that. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So to begin with, you are a YouTuber, but you're also like an all around creative. You write, like you're a videographer. Like, what is your skill set?
Yeah, so I run a production company, a video production company. I went to college for it, film school, did all that rigmarole. And so, yeah, I went to film school for post production. I wanted to be a feature film editor. And then one thing led to another. I ended up on the internet. And now that is like how I make the bulk of my living is on the internet in some capacity. But I also do traditional client work. Like a lot of people don't realize that. Like I have regular like production clients. So like say if For Harriet wanted to have like an about us video where they like somebody's interviewing you talking about how you started the company and all that kind of stuff. StumbleWell would make that kind of video too.
I already love this because you have a lot going on. It's a lot being a full time creator and making sure the YouTube videos get up and managing the brand deals. But you also have this other company that's thriving, and that means that you have to do a lot of client relations. How does that balancing act happen for you?
It doesn't. If I'm being honest, it does not happen. I think I've just finally gotten to a point. I started StumbleWell officially in 2018, and I think I've just gotten to a point now where I have like some pretty healthy boundaries around what I will and won't do. But that's because I had to like go through a burnout session of like, oh, well, found the limit. Cool.
And while you're doing all of this, you're also married.
Yes,
And you got married real young. How old are you?
I did. I was 21 by the time we got married. Actually, no, I was. I had just turned 21 by the time we got married.
Okay, this is so fascinating to me. As what's my the attachment style? It's anxious avoidant or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, as a commitment phobe,
Got it.
I am so fascinated by people who just decide like this is it and I'm going all in. Before you got married, did you have really in-depth conversations with your soon-to-be husband about your professional goals?
Actually, yeah. And that those came up very organically. Like we had already been talking about, ironically, we still don't have any kids, been married 11 years, but we started talking about like potentially how many kids we would want. We also talked about, I met him while I was in college, and one of the main reasons I was going to the university I was going to was to go to LA to pursue a career
Yeah.
in editing feature films. And that was part of my undergrad degree was to go to LA and intern. So I was very upfront with him about like I will be gone the last semester of my undergraduate degree. We live in Texas. So yeah, we talked a lot about just establishing what our overall like life goals were before we ever got married, for sure.
So he was all in. He understood that he was partnering somebody who is deeply creative and really wanted to pursue that. Like it wasn't going to be like a little side, little hobby that you do on the weekends after you do your real job. This was your passion and you were going to pursue it wholeheartedly.
He definitely understood that I was very career oriented. At that time, I didn't realize that, yeah, I would eventually start a production company of my own and be a producer per se. But he definitely knew that I was like committed to having a full career.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he has a very, or had a very, very traditional job. Did you ever worry about, okay, how are these things going to mesh?
Oh, definitely. I mean, again, like LA was really heavy on my mind
Yeah.
when we first met because that at the time that seemed like where I needed to be to get my career to the level that I wanted. I then went to LA and realized I hated it and flew back. So it kind of worked out in that way. But I did push for us to not live where we actually live now, San Antonio. I pushed for us to move to Austin because that was where I'd already established a lot of my connections. And he actually turned down a job in San Antonio to move to Austin with me after I graduated. So,
Okay, so what are those conversations like? Now, this is interesting. We're already getting into that defying traditional gender norms thing that seems to upset a lot of people because traditionally people expect if you're a hetero person that the woman partner moves so that the male partner can pursue their dreams. Was there any hesitancy about him deciding to turn down that job?
a little bit, yeah. Even though it was in a career field that he wasn't necessarily invested in per se, but it was the opportunity to definitely get himself to the next level in regards like purely financially. And so, yeah, I can't, it's, again, it's been a while, but I remember the conversations were pretty strong, mostly because I was kind of like, I really can't live in San Antonio where I currently was in my career and
Yeah.
have any kind of career. So, like, you're the one that has the ability to move, whereas I need to be somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were pretty hard. He also was way more of a realist about it, I think. And I think it helped that I already had so many connections in Austin. So it was like, I know I can get something. I just need to be in this location.
Yeah.
And so he was more like, yeah, but what am I going to do? So he was really just like goal oriented. Like, how do I solve this problem and find something to get into when I get up there?
Yeah. So how many years ago was that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, we've been married 11 years. The first 3 months I was finishing my career, so we were finishing my undergrad, so we were long distance. So yeah, it's like 11 years ago. Yeah.
So I honestly, you got in on the Austin wave really early, right? Like that was a good bet.
Yeah, it served its purpose, sure.
Yeah. When you make the decision that Austin is the place that you need to be to pursue your goals, do you then feel a lot of pressure to, oh, we got to make this work now?
Oh, definitely. Just yeah. I mean, again, I'm married to a Taurus, so like really like what is the plan? Where are the deliverables here? And we were very not rich when we first got married. So I was on Craigslist looking for like post-production jobs wherever I could find them. He was working in a hospital as a unit clerk, which is like the entry level position into an ER facility, basically. So you're just there, like putting people in as they come in. We did not make enough money. I wasn't used to living on the outskirts of Austin. I was used to being in the university setting at UT. So it was also like a culture shock for me of like living in Austin as, a young college person who's still broke, but like, ooh, college, it's just a different vibe versus living in Austin as an adult and being like, this rent is renting.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were not okay financially for a minute. We were living off of mostly, I think, his pay, which again was not very high in the beginning, while I figured it out and got a job relatively quickly.
Okay. Now I'm curious about, at this time, does he love his job?
Oh, he doesn't. Well, he works for me now, I
No, no,
guess.
no. I mean, like, at the time when you're, yeah, because y'all have made the switch. We're
Yeah,
going
we've
to get
made
to
the
that.
switch. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So at the time when you're living in Austin and he's in this entry level position, does he love it? Is that his passion?
Oh God, no. He does not. I mean, he decided, and he's said this we have a marriage podcast together, and he has said this multiple times. He went with something that he knew was reliable and would pay well, and you could have some sort of longevity in. And he utilized it as a catalyst to get a nursing degree.
Yeah.
So, which he also did not love. He did
Yeah.
not love being a nurse at all.
So
So,
I'm wondering, he is taking on these jobs that are going to pay something but are not his passion while you are putting everything into pursuing yours. Is there any resentment that creeps in there?
ooh, what a great question. Um, Thankfully, no, if memory serves me correctly, only because I think it ended up being a tit for tat kind of situation. He was working in a job that he didn't want, but was, he had a long term plan. And then I ended up getting a job with a video agency, my first video agency job, which was low key run by a crazy woman. Um, and so, like, that was the sacrificial, like, ebb and flow of the relationship. Because I almost didn't want to take the job, even though we needed the money,
Yeah.
because I knew like what I was about to get into with the owner, you know.
Yeah.
Eventually, I got fired from it, so there you go. But yeah, so it was a tit for tat for sure.
Yeah. So he's working his very traditional job. You have a job, but then you're also in your free time doing your own creative pursuits.
Yes, ish. At that time, I was mostly just working for the video agency. I think I might have started putting a little bit of here and that on YouTube. I didn't really do that until I actually like felt like I had time, which
Yeah.
wasn't very long
So
ago.
how long are y'all both working these jobs, just to make it to get by before you say, oh no, I need some more time so I can, oh, you got fired.
I got fired. Yeah.
Oh, and then you got lots of free time.
No, I got fired and went to retail for
Yeah.
like a hot second because like immediately, like the fight or flight kicks in. You go find something, you know. What I'm like, Kiki, I keep a job. I stay stay
Yeah.
at a job. But while I did that, I immediately ended up getting hired by another video agency because of a videographer that had worked at the other one. And that ended up being amazing. I ended up working for that company for 5 years, getting pay raises as I went, like all of that kind of stuff. And it was really ideal timing because as that happened, he went back to school to get his master's degree in nursing. And so there was a shift there again, too. Yeah.
Oh,
But he was
okay.
still
So
working full
we're
time through the
teeter
whole thing.
tottering back. So now you're the primary breadwinner.
Yes ish. He was still working through the whole thing while he got his master's degree.
Okay.
I was making more money than him at that point, but he was still bringing in like very, good income. So we were like okay by year 4, 5 of this relationship.
Uh-huh. So by year 5 of your marriage, you're mid-20s.
Yeah.
Is he older than you?
Yeah, yeah, he's older than me, about 4 years older than me.
Oh,
I'm
okay. So
32.
he's late 20s. Okay. And you working at this job that you like for a few years, at what point do you say, I want to do my own thing?
Yeah, so I said I wanted to do my own thing officially. I'd already been thinking about leaving because that job was so great and I knew and yet I still wanted elements of my control back, like elements of freedom back that I think you just can't really have with a traditional paying job. Even though the job was completely remote, by the way. Like this producer did not want to have a physical space at all. So like the whole business was completely remote. It's basically what everyone's doing now. I was
I
already doing it.
know, visionary.
Yeah, she was a visionary, high key. Yeah, and so I just realized I had come to a point like, oh, I want to give this a go myself. But I didn't really know what that looked like yet. But I decided to leave officially in 2018 because we were on the homeless spectrum at that point. like just some things that fell through in life, and we were living with my parents, and I was like, if you can do everything right and still fail, you might as well give it a go. So that was what I
Oh, this
did.
this segues exactly into where I wanted to go. Your parents are still married.
Yes, they are. They're still
Okay.
married.
I have watched many of your videos. It seems that they're kind of traditional.
They are, but they aren't. So, like, and I think this also plays into why I was surprised watching your video that, like, oh, this is something people mad about? Oh, okay, bet. Because it's not what I was raised in. My
Yeah.
mom was the breadwinner for most of my, like, formative life. Even though my dad is a, like, veteran, he served 20 years, all that. But my mom's she's always more or less made more money than him. But they do have a traditional marriage in regards to like Christian themed black marriage. You
Oh,
know?
I love this. I love this. Okay. I love this because this is so common. This is
Yeah.
so common, especially among Black people. That's why I'm so fascinated by Black people who desire to hang on to these very traditional ideals about men do this and women do this, because I'm like, didn't we all at least see one or two couples where the woman made more or had more education or was higher social class or whatever, but they were still deeply in love and they made it work? That seems, now I've also seen where the woman made more and the shit didn't work out. But in
Right.
your case, right? Like, you had this thing where like money does not define success or who does what, or like whether or not you're fully in it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's always been surprising to me because and I don't know if this, I think you've probably talked on this before of like men who only have daughters, and how they kind of have to, whether they realize it or not, shift their perspective on everything. My dad only had daughters. And so I think, and something I grew up with a lot was like, I don't want you to ever need a man. I want you to want one,
Yeah.
you know? And so again, for me, it wasn't, even now, it's not weird for me to be the person making the most money of the two of us because that's what I was raised in. But I mean, every not every marriage is perfect. There are aspects now that I look at my parents' marriage where it's like I wouldn't do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's working for them. I think they've been together like 40 some years at this point. So
Yeah. So you have this financially rocky time. Is there any point you said, well, you hit the bottom, so might as well, pursue the dreams? But that financially rocky time might be the point where people are like, no, let me just go ahead and do the 9 to 5 or be a consultant or, get a
yeah,
desk job. You never had those feelings?
I really didn't. But I think it's also because the reason why I started the company was like I got a really great opportunity through YouTube and Adobe right at that time. So it was like, oh, okay, I got 6 months like with these two opportunities. I'm no time like the present, obviously. So let me just go ahead and bounce on this. And at that point, Chris already had his master's degree. He was already a nurse manager somewhere in San Antonio. We'd moved back
Yeah.
to San Antonio, so I'd like moved for him, essentially, from Austin as well. So it just felt like might as well do this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And how's your marriage during this time?
It's fascinating because our marriage was fine during this time. I think it was more of a survival instinct. People would comment on all these things that were happening with us during this time and be like, "Wow, at least y'all aren't talking about divorce or anything like that." And we were both like, "When you're in the middle of a lawsuit, on the displacement, homeless spectrum, this and that, the last thing you want to do is divorce the person you're building this life with. You know what I mean? This is the only other person that knows what you're going through. It'd be silly to divorce them now. But we would get that so often during that time. Now, after we came out of it and moved into like our first little apartment after like figuring out all of that issue and living with my parents for a year and breaking all of that, then I was like, okay, now I want to divorce you, kind of, now that we're out and I have space to like think about things.
Yeah.
And we almost got divorced in 2019, or we were talking about it like a lot during the
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all are kind of going through like the COVID cycle. A lot of couples went through like a couple of years early.
Yeah, it was like we were just. It was one of those things like, who are you again? You know, because like we were both in just a survival instinct of like, I got your back, you got my back. We just need to get through this together.
Yeah.
And yeah, once there was actually space and breath to be like, okay, but this thing you do still does kind of annoy me, I guess. You know, like I put it on the back burner because we needed to, but like, actually, these were some things that I did want to figure out with you, without you, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff here. So one, because I watch your videos, you just saying this jogged my memory. You were gonna buy a house together and you bought the house, but then you moved in and there was all kinds of stuff happening with
Oh,
the house
yeah.
and you couldn't move in.
Yeah. It was crazy. We
Yeah.
did move in. We lived in it for like 36 hours and then
Okay.
realized we could not.
Okay. Hot day and a half. Okay.
Hot day and a half, yeah.
All right. And then you move in with your parents. Thank goodness that you have, people that
Yes.
you can move in with.
Yeah, big facts on that.
My single woman question is, would it have been easier or harder to go through that if you were single?
And this is something I've thought about too. Um, I really, maybe? I think maybe just because there were decisions that we had to make. That's the thing about being married. Like you don't, if hopefully you don't make your own decisions anymore. You always kind of need to keep someone else's life in mind. Like I would have started my production company and quit my agency job. That was very nice. Many years before 2018, if I lived alone, if I were single. But I always had a thought in the back of my mind, like, okay, your life isn't just yours now, like officially. You do need to take into account other people, at least this one other person. And so I think I would have probably approached the house situation like a smidge differently,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I feel like I probably would have just like really dipped instead of like sticking around in San Antonio to like figure something out.
So while you're going through all of this housing turmoil, you're still working for yourself primarily, and Chris is still working his job, and he's a nurse now.
Yeah, he's an RN now, and then I've started the company. I'm like weaning off of the agency and ramping up the company. Yeah.
All right. So how are things going for you financially at
Like
this
right
time?
now?
2018, 2019?
Oh, 2018, 2019. I mean, I'm in the midst of a lawsuit and we're dealing with a house that is hemorrhaging money. So, not like the best per se.
Yeah.
But also like we're not broke either.
Yeah.
Like we can afford to pay for the lawyer.
Yeah.
So it's going okay. And we're also living with my parents, which ironically, well, not ironically, drops down your overall cost of living. But we're like compensating for it with them in other ways of just like, I went back into straight up like kid mode of just like,
Yeah.
kids are meant to be seen, not heard, and vacuuming, dusting, cook. I think he was cooking all the meals for both my parents at that point, yeah. So ironically, I think they loved it, which is
Yeah.
hilarious to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So honestly, I know my mom just a month ago said we should buy a house together. She would love
Oh,
it if we, if we
my
moved
dad definitely
together.
pitched that by the time we left. My dad definitely pitched that to us. Of like, we just need to live near y'all and, we just buy something big enough and, there you go. And I was like, I love you, Dad, but respectfully, I decline for now.
Absolutely not. Immediately no. Immediately no. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've finally gotten your stuff together, your finances together. You moved out. Relationship is rocky, but are finances still rocky when you guys move out together?
Are finances still rocky I'm just really getting going with the company. So like financially, he's good. Like his career is doing pretty well. I think he's making the most he's ever made. I keep pointing this way because he's working like right off camera. But I am getting to be okay. Like coming out of 2018, the money was about to run out. That's 6 months that I had gotten of opportunity. And so I am looking for the next, like, okay, shit, what's the next project the company's working on? And right towards the end of that year, I get the show, the PBS show.
Yeah.
And that was what funded the company for 2019.
Yeah.
On top of other client stuff, but like that was the big ticket one.
Yeah.
So,
So the foundation of your marital woes is not money.
no. It's more like, who are you? Who am I? Who are we, though? Because at this point, what I think I heard somewhere, it's like every 7 years your cells regenerate or something. You're like a completely new
7-year
person.
itch. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're past 7 year itch to, I think it was more like 8 or 9. But I think for me, it was more just like, I met you when I was 19, married to you by the time I was 21. Now I'm 28, 9, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. Like, I'm a completely different person now. I mean, there's some core
Yeah.
things that are the same, and so are you, you know? So, like, I think it was more just like, are we going to grow it, parallel to each other still, or are we going to grow in complete opposition,
Uh-huh.
And just figuring that out.
Yeah.
But there
So,
wasn't anything crazy. There wasn't like, people have fidelity or people have infidelity or people have this or that or the third. It was really just like, I just don't, are we vibing still? Like, I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. There was no resentment about the balance of who's paying for what early, but now you're 8 years later and y'all are not really feeling each other, and he's still taking the majority of the financial burden. There's still no resentment.
Not that I know. I feel like I want to ask him now, but like,
Yeah.
not to my knowledge. At that point, though, I will say when I officially left my agency job and started StumbleWell, we did have a lot of conversations about what my financial contribution to our relationship needed to be for him to be okay with it.
Yeah, because he's
Yeah.
concerned.
Oh, yeah, he's really concerned. And not because he didn't want me to follow the dream or anything like that. I think for him, that's where the machismo did kind of kick in of like, I should be able to support my partner. Sorry, he's Latino. So culturally, it is like I can keep a woman fight because I can support them or whatever. So there's not really animosity that comes out of it, but it more just action. Like, okay, how do I need to like provide for this person now? And so for me, we had figured out what that percentage needed to be. I would say it was probably like 60-40. Like it was
Okay.
close,
Yeah, it's close.
but I couldn't like quite. I was like, I need a little more time. Give me a little
Yeah.
more time, you know.
Yeah. And I think I was watching your videos at some point because you had this contract with PBS. You have this, it's a digital show for PBS.
Yeah.
And you still have your production company. You're doing other client work at this time?
Yeah, I'm working. Yeah, I'm doing other client work too. So I'm working mostly with nonprofits. It's like a ton
Okay.
of nonprofit stuff.
And if I remember correctly, you're deciding that you're really going to go hard on YouTube,
Yes.
your own personal YouTube channel.
But that was 2020. So I came out of 2019 and was like, "Oh, I'm all right financially.
Yeah.
I need to take a nap." And by taking a nap for me was just doing YouTube full time for 6 months.
Oh, okay.
I went sabbatical.
So doing that client work and the PBS show, you were burnt out.
Yes, I was. I had spread myself like way too thin, and I think that also contributed to why we were on the rocks as well. Like I was just like, I don't have the energy
Yeah.
to
You know,
give.
something I haven't asked yet is he is taking on the majority of the financial burden. He has his job, but is he also helping you with your stuff during this time? 2018, 2019?
Was he? I don't think he was. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, by us, it's kind of hard to not talk to your partner about what you're working on.
Yeah. But are y'all getting into the weeds? Like set up this lights, camera?
No, no.
Okay.
I think there's a couple episodes of the show, of the PBS show, that he's in the credits because he did something, whether it would be like running audio for that, or just assisting in some way. But for the most part, he had a full-time job, so I couldn't be pulling him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To do stuff.
But one of the ways you do work together during this time is you have a couples podcast together.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And when did that start?
That started in, I want to say 2018, like during all of the, because we had to film them at the co-working space we were working out of, or I was working out of at the time. So,
yeah.
Because nowhere to film.
So. Yeah. Why did you decide to start talking about your relationship in public and putting it on the internet?
A couple reasons. One, at this point, he had appeared in a couple of videos on the channel. But there was a lot of fetishization that was happening with those appearances. I just am not into it.
Okay.
Like, ew, stop. And so I was like, if y'all want to see my partner, then you need to actually see him as a human being. So he is only going to be in long form content. He can't just pop in, ooh, fetish, and pop out. Like, no shade, Britpop life, you know? Like, now they've figured it out, and we all know now that's like, oh, they're, like, locked and loaded in. You know what I mean? But, yeah, that was the main reason we started the podcast, of, like, okay, people are asking for this content, but y'all need to actually see who he is.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody, the vibe of this conversation is giving lots of indecision. Doesn't seem like anything was clearly defined in the relationship. It seems like you're, I don't like.
I appreciate your honesty.
Are you guys? I mean, you know, it's harsh. You know, people be harsh when they're anonymous. But I guess a question I would ask is, when you're making these choices and you're moving this way in your career, he's moving that way. Y'all are living together. You're married, so you're having conversations every step of the way about, I'm gonna do this. This is the goal. This is where I think this is gonna take us.
Yeah, I mean, even when we were both doing our own separate things in our careers, like, there was a lot of debriefing that happens, like, every night. It's hard to not live with someone and be like, how was your day? What are your goals and aspirations? You know what I mean? Especially for him, like, going and getting a master's is not something you just do and your partner, like, doesn't know about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, lots of conversation.
Yeah.
But, I mean, defined roles, yeah, no, not really, you know?
I mean, but I don't think that that's bad, but that's also, I will have to say, why I'm single. I mean, is that why I'm single? It's some other stuff too. But one of the reasons why I think that it is actually, in some ways, good to be able to be unpartnered is, if I wake up tomorrow and want to do something else, I do it. If I wake up tomorrow and want to go here or there or whatever, or if I want to change the direction of my channel or shut down this channel, I don't have to have any conversations with anybody, because it's my life. I do what I want. I'm grown. And I think a lot of creators, I need freedom. Like, that is my number one thing, desire, my most prized possession. I'm like a bird. Shout out to Nelly Furtado.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult for me to have to forego some of that freedom and, honestly, flightiness. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes I can be flaky because I have this huge responsibility to somebody else. Like, that would be real, real hard for me. Did you ever have any trouble with that?
Yes, only in regards to, like, professional decisions. Again, like, I always had the understanding of, like, I'm married, so there's someone else in my life that I need to make decisions and keep that other person's life in mind when I make those decisions. But honestly, like, again, I met him when I was 19, so I was at UT already. I was in college. And by the time we were engaged, a lot of my friends and colleagues at that time, you know, we're all pretty young, 20-something, early 1920s. A lot of them were like, why are you tying yourself down so soon? Like, we got so much life to live. Why are you trying to ball and chain it so early? But I really didn't think about it that way when I met him, even though I had always truly thought that I would be someone who did not get married until nowish, because I
Mhm.
already knew that about myself, that I valued my freedom. But marriage made a lot of things easier for me in regards to socially moving through the world. It
Mhm.
is so freeing, at least for me, to
Yeah.
know that I don't have to think about if you are trying to find me attractive, if you're not, if you're trying to court me, if you're not. Like, that was something I really valued very early on, of just like, I don't have to play this, because I had realized in college very early, oh, I'm not cut out for the playing of the games and the this and the that. Like, I'm just, it's not who I
Yeah.
am. And so for me, it's been very freeing to just like be married and then focus on what I actually want to do with my life, which is my career, and bring
Man,
this person with me.
man, Hallease, you're hitting on some things. All right. Have you ever, did you watch maybe the first time Will Smith was on Red Table Talk?
Oh, I did. I think I remember it. I'm vague though.
Okay. Will Smith said that even when he was really, really young and like just becoming super, super famous, he knew in his mind that he did not want to be out here hoeing. He knew
Mm,
that he wanted to find a wife and get married, settle down. One, because all of the most successful people around him were married, but
mm,
two, because he recognized that he was going to need all of that hoeing energy. He was going to need to harness it into completely investing in his career, into self actualization, into being the biggest movie star in the world. And you can't do both. We have a finite
yeah.
amount of energy. We only have 24 hours in a day. And so eliminating that means that I have all of this extra brain space to be great at my job. And you saying that like really like that aligns with what he said.
I mean, it really is how I felt. Like, as soon as I got engaged, I just felt I could literally feel myself moving through life just so much more differently, and like, and it being freeing. Now, I do understand that there is, as someone who values their freedom like you a lot, like a lot, there is a trade-off. Yes, especially, investing in someone else. Like, you need to be aware of what that, I don't even want to call it a sacrifice, because it has paid itself forward, like, well beyond my wildest dreams. But I think you do have to recognize that, yeah, there are gonna be some things you have to compromise on your freedom. But hopefully you're with the right person and it works out. It's a compromise that you're willing to make.
100%. Nothing is ever black and white. And I totally acknowledge that the amount of time that I spend going back and forth with niggas, texting, trying to go on dates, picking out outfits,
Look,
like it's a lot of time. That's a second job.
it actually kind of stresses me out. I met him right before all the dating apps took off. Like, I think eHarmony was the only thing. There wasn't an app. You were like on a browser looking at that.
Yeah.
And so I'm a millennial that has no concept of a dating app. Like, I remember I was swiping left and right for one of my friends, and she was like, "You're spending too much time on it." I was like, "But they say this. Answer back this way. Say
Yeah.
hello in Swedish." Like, they had said they spoke multiple languages. So anyway,
It's
I couldn't.
it's definite. I mean, and I am a hardcore dater. I'm not like every once in a while. Like I'm
Okay.
a 2 to 3 times a week dater, and
Oh, Jesus.
it is a lot for sure. And I think a lot about wow. I could be speaking 3 languages by now, right? Like, or I could like, wow, if I had had one person for the last 10 years of doing this, like I think about that a lot. So, I say I'm really content with my life, but I do not take for granted, man, the time and then now I got you treated, now I got to cry. And oh, why are you, it's just a whole lot. Okay. So, we are in 2020 now.
Yeah.
You have How are you feeling after? Do you feel validated after you this PBS partnership? You're really doing it, you're making it work, you have a business and it's a real business.
Yeah, it does feel very validating. So much so that, and like, feel validating and financially validating, so much so that I can take a sabbatical and focus on the channel, and not take on traditional client work for 6 months. I mean, the rest of the world obviously took one with me, so it's cool, but like that made it even better. And then it was like everybody's taking a nap. I really don't have any YOLO about, or like, what is it, fear of missing out, about my decision. So it works out, and I'm in such a good place, and so is he. I mean, well, actually, no, he's not in a good place in 2020 because he's a nurse.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a shit show with what he's doing.
Okay. Oh, also, sorry, before we got off on the Will Smith dating is hard and very time consuming thing, you mentioned the fetishization of your relationship. You are, what is your ethnic background? I almost want to say Haitian. Or are you Black American? You're Black American.
Oh yeah, no, I'm African American, descendant of slaves, man.
Who
I
do I
get
know
that
who's
though. I get
Haitian?
Haitian a lot. I get Ghanaian a lot.
Okay,
So
you're Black. I was like, oh, a Black American, because I said it first. Okay, so you're Black American.
yeah.
He is Mexican American?
He's Latino. He's not from Mexico, but
Oh, they don't
he
do
would.
hyphenated. Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't like
Um,
that.
Now I feel like that might be a Texas. Okay, but anyways,
It is a Texas thing.
yeah, like the Texas Latinos are definitely, that's definitely a thing. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. You are in an interracial relationship, and there is and has been for quite some time, particularly on YouTube, a thing about Black women in interracial relationships when they bring on their partners, or then you transition into having a podcast together. There's like an energy around it. There's a commentary around it. How do you navigate that?
I don't know if it's just because the audience of the podcast is just like giving the vibe off that I like to give, and so like they're reciprocate of that. It's very rare that there's any like nastiness in the podcast. And I think again, it's just because it's so long and people have gotten to really know us as individuals. Every now and then it comes up, especially if recording it, like talking about like how we talked about race throughout our relationship. And I think also there was an episode we did talking about like Black love and why it is valid, even though I'm not buying, like I'm not perpetuating into it, and why I still celebrate it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So people are pretty open to it. I haven't really gotten, if anything, the thing that usually happens the most is hate comments that are rooted in self-hate. So dark-skinned women putting some sort of comment like, I can't believe he's with you because you're so dark.
What?
Kind of stuff. And that comes up every now and then, but it's very rare now.
Okay.
It kind of got weeded out over the years.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're Portuguese. Like, it's in Portuguese, the comments. Wow. So, yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. So, but you mentioned when he would first come on sporadically, you felt a little bit of the like people intrigued just because this is what's happening here. Like, what's this dynamic?
Yeah. People were just intrigued by that. I think also, again, I'm a pretty independent person. I think I give off that. And so people were also just like, there's a husband? Who is he? You know what I mean? Because I wasn't very, in the beginning, forthcoming. Like, he just started using his actual name in videos, like, a year ago. He was Mr. Hallease to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that was, like, his decision. He was like, I don't want people to know my name. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, also, this is making me think he has a real, very traditional job. You're appearing together on the internet. Is he concerned about people in his professional life finding videos where y'all are getting pretty deep, pretty exposing and vulnerable about the stuff happening?
Yeah, he was. As he was starting to move up the ladder in management nursing, we took many breaks from the podcast. Like, I think there's a whole year where we didn't do anything because someone at the hospital recognized him from the podcast and was like, Mr. Hallease, like yelled it down the hospital hallway. And he was like, what? And yeah, he was like, I think I want to take a break from doing this, And I was like, respect. I mean, this is your livelihood, so you don't need to be on the internet,
Yeah. Whose idea was the podcast originally?
Oh, man. I don't know. Was it his? I want to say it was mine. Because, again, people were asking more about him.
Yeah.
Um, but he was into doing it. I don't know. Love,
Yeah.
whose idea was it to start the podcast? Or the marriage podcast? Was it yours? Was it mine? All right. He says it was mine. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you have any hesitancy at all about once, I told somebody I used to date, like once a relationship is open, it doesn't go back closed. So
Right.
once you start opening, people, you give an inch and they want to take a mile.
A little bit because like I at that point we had already seen I think we had already seen Francesca Ramsey go through her divorce or
Mm-hmm.
separation at least. And she had been, if y'all remember or not, she had been pretty like partners slowly got integrated in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was another reason why I was hesitant to ever put him on the channel because it's like, look, relationships end. I ain't trying to get got like this. But then at some point, I don't know, you just kind of are like, you know what? This is life. And if we don't work out, then people can see what that is with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
And
just see what
so
happens.
what's the division of labor when it comes to the podcast?
And he's taking on more and more of it now. So he's coming up with the topics now. I set up to film, but he also helps to set up to film. And he does the editing and gets it to like 90% of the way there. And then I do quality check and push it down just a little bit more for runtime and put it out.
Yeah. Has it always been like that?
No, he just started taking over more of it this year, I would say.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
were really, for the first few years, really spearheading it. Okay. And so now we're into 2020, shit hits the fan, the world blows up,
Yeah.
and your YouTube is going well. Like you're growing.
Yeah.
And how's he feeling in his job? Not too good?
Oh, not too good at all. So, like, this is the pandemic. Everything's terrible. Nurses, thankfully, he's not like at the bedside. So it's not quite that epic. But just like ensuring the safety of the patients that are coming into this like facility is just a mess, just an
Yeah.
absolute mess. So he's burnt
Yeah.
out
Okay.
for sure.
So then there's a time when you decide things are really stable for you in your creative career. YouTube is popping. You're still doing client work, and he doesn't want to do nursing anymore.
Yeah.
So what is that conversation like?
The conversation was, I really hate what I'm doing. I really hate everything that's going on. And I say, sounds like you should quit. Why don't you do that? And he says, no. And I say, I think you can. I can give you 6 months. I took a sabbatical. You want to take a sabbatical? And he was like, one can take sabbaticals? And I'm like, yes, one can take sabbaticals. Take one. I actually had to really convince him. And he like soft quit. And then he went to bedside nursing because, again, I think the machismo, the like male dominated thing, if I'm not making money, do I actually bring value to this relationship? So he had to work through a lot of that on his own. But eventually he did quit and take a nap.
Yeah. And so this is the end of 2020?
Yeah, I think he quit by like December of 2020.
Yeah. And so y'all have completely, so many things have changed, right? We're in a full circle moment. Y'all are, relationship is repaired. You're very financially stable. He's not feeling it. And you say you did this for me. So of course I have no problem doing it for you. Never a second guess. Like you're totally cool. Love this.
Listen, you gotta prioritize your peace. I don't know if your parents were ever like this. Like my dad would always say to me, if I gotta come home and your mom's talking to me about you, like he would do this. You and I gonna box, because like you're messing with my wife, And it was the same thing for me. Like he'd come home and just be so miserable, and it's just like, yo, you're not fun to live with, and I can enable this to not be what it is,
Yeah.
So how about we do that now?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the mindset.
And
for
at
sure.
no point when you're making these decisions, what other people are going to say never crosses your mind. You don't care about it. You're just going to tunnel vision. This is what works here. Who gives a fuck about your normative gender roles?
More or less. I mean, I think I there was came a point where I was definitely coaching him of like, what are you gonna tell people when they
Yeah.
inevitably ask you what you're doing? And there were a couple of times oh my gosh, I think my parents mean the best. They really do. I know they meant it with just like, we just want to know you good. But my mom, who is also a nurse, was very much like, don't let your nursing license lap. Like she just kept calling him over and over, like, don't let it lap though. And my dad was just like, but like, what's he finna do all day if he don't work? Like, what does he do? And I was like, he takes a nap. And
Yeah.
then I think he's gonna write. We'll see. I don't know. And he'll help me with stuff. It'll be fine, Dad. We're fine. At least for 6 months, it'll be fine, you know? Because that was like the amount of money I knew that the company had.
Yeah.
So I was good with it.
So at what point do y'all come to the decision that Chris is never going back to work, that he is gonna work with / for you?
Pretty immediately. Because I think, again, Chris was still working through his own feelings of like insecurity about what value am I bringing. So I think for
Yeah.
him, he really wanted to feel like he's doing something like on paper for the company that can be translated into like sweat equity value. And so I was like, I don't know, answer the emails, man. You know, like, here, answer the emails. And that happened like pretty immediately. And then going on client shoots, that was pretty immediate, where he was essentially like second camera production assistant for like any client shoot the company had to save money.
So you're not like, oh, I really need this help. Like, I really need you to do this. You're like, make yourself useful, you know, like you're like, okay, like you wanna put some skin in the game here. Here's some things that you can do.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was also I know for him, it was also like, and he said this so many times, how long can I prolong not going back to nursing? Does that mean I need to help you more so that way I take things off of your plate so you have more space to grow the company or do whatever that is? Like, again, he's a very like goal-oriented person. So for him, it's like, I don't want to ever go back. So what do I need to do to not go back? And that's his mindset.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
does that make your life easier?
it does. Yeah. And it's more, I would say it's more emotionally. It makes things a lot easier. Like, I feel like, and to your commenter's point, like, yeah, we don't have traditional roles and things aren't very defined. But, and I was talking to him about this earlier, I feel what I've wanted out of a relationship was not to be taken care of financially. I wanted emotional support. And I have that. That's what I wanted out of a relationship. So,
Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, because I feel like you are at this time very well established. I mean, you've been doing this professionally like a decade or more by 2021.
yeah.
You know exactly what to do, where things need to go, where the camera, right? But he doesn't. Like he is completely new. So you're having to coach and like explain and maybe do more work for him, coaching him through than you would just hiring somebody else off of Craigslist.
Yes, ish. Thankfully, a few things had happened like osmosis that he kind
Yeah.
of already seemed to know how to do, which was interesting. Like right out the gate, he was a pretty good B cam operator. So it was like, oh, okay, bet. But yeah, he started his own like podcast, like storytelling podcast, and it was like, all right, well, learn how to edit Premiere, you know, like
Yeah.
learn that. I mean, I've already made a class, so go watch my class on Skillshare. Here's the link. But yeah, there was a little bit of like, I kind of, I want to enable you, but I also like have other things I need to focus on, you know? And I
Yeah.
had to let the reins go of just like, okay, there's going to be a dip, and I need to let the dip happen so that way you can figure out what you want to do.
Ooh, that dip is hard though, right? No, seriously, that gives me anxiety. That's when I have to hire new people. I'm like, oh crap, the next 2 weeks are gonna be so shitty while you figure out the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the, like, for example, like finding cinematographers for
Yeah.
StumbleWell is always a super hard thing because you see their reels and this and that, but then push come to shove, you finally to hire them to do a production with you, right? And they can't fail at it. Like there's too many things at stake. Like you don't get to fail at this. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times you end up spending more money to potentially bring on a new contractor. So you have your main DP that you are hiring for this, and then you have the second contractor be like a B cam operator, but you're low key scouting them out to see how they do. But you're spending more money, you know? So yeah, it was a little bit of that, of just like having to acknowledge with him of like, okay, things are just going to take a smidge longer, and that's okay.
Yeah, but you seem to be a really patient person. You're never frustrated by that?
I think
Oh,
I'm patient enough.
okay.
I think I will always have room to improve on my patience.
Yeah. Okay, so you're running a business, and
Yeah.
things have to get done, and they have to be done well, and there's a certain level of quality and professionalism that people expect because your name is on it, but you're also kind of having to coach your partner and letting him fail a little bit to figure things out.
Yeah.
um are you stressed? How are you making sure things get done and making sure your relationship with your husband doesn't suffer, and neither does the quality of your work?
With much prayer, I think
Okay.
is how it's happening. We definitely had to learn how to re-communicate with each other as two
Yeah.
people now who are both working creatively in, at this point it's pandemic, so we're both just at home,
Mm-hmm.
And we had like a lot of conversations. Like he had to relearn like, oh, this is why she would talk to me so much late into the night about whatever she was working on. Or he would I know something we struggled with is like he would just pop in with like, I need a quick answer to this question. And I was like, you can't do that
Yeah.
to me anymore. You know? I'm also something else I realized, like I'm not a good boss.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why I work for myself and I don't have full-time employees and things like that. I don't think I'm a very good boss. So I'm still working on that. Like, what does it even look like to be a good boss to
Yeah.
this man?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't given him like a roles and duties as assigned paper. Like I haven't given him that, and it's been on my to-do list like since the beginning of this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's tough for sure.
Yeah.
I think, I definitely have memories of, being out with somebody I'm dating, or being out with an ex-boyfriend and needing them to take pictures or whatever, and trying to be very firm, but understanding, like, I know that you don't even take good pictures of yourself, so how are you gonna take good pictures of me? But I need you to take good pictures of me, so you need to focus, like, like I get it, but also you need to focus and
Yeah.
look at the camera, and this is the angle, and I already told you that's not a good angle, and like, and going back and forth about, and he was just like, I'm not an employee, and it's like, I get it, but we still have a job, right? Like we still have to get this done. So just like put that aside for a second, because you're not doing good, like, so it's
Yeah.
like how do you say to your partner whom you love, I care about your feelings, but also you're not doing what I need you to do?
Yeah. Um, yeah. So that has happened with us a few times. I think what helped was that he had already seen me in a professional setting before he started helping me with things.
Yeah.
So like when I worked at the agency, we had a big shoot with a tech company, like over $100,000 shoot for sure. And it was like a hospital themed stuff. And so the producer of that hired him on as a consultant because at this point he already had his nursing master's. And he was like, this is what it looks like if someone's coming out of a heart surgery. Like, here are the things you do with that to make the acting believable. And so I was a producer on that too. And there were like, I quickly very much established a hard boundary of things because he would walk up to me on set and be like, hey, love. And I was like, ooh, don't call me that. Not here.
Yeah.
And then I think he also tried to like kiss me at some point on set. And I was like,
Yeah.
And that hurt his feelings, but he immediately was like, "Oh, right, though I wouldn't want that to happen to me if were managing and you came, like it's just
Yeah.
different." So I think he's thankfully once he started helping me with stuff, the sternness that I had and like the barrier I had, it wasn't unfamiliar to him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at the same time, I had to apologize a lot. I mean, the short end of it is I apologize a lot for
Yeah.
my tone
Yeah. Are
a
you
lot.
able to are you able to easily turn it on and turn it off? Like, where are the boundaries? I think this is the big thing that concerns
Sure.
people about working with their life partner of, when we are here, I'm going to speak to you in this way, but when we're here, I'm going to speak to you in this way. And how do I know? And how do you know when we're in the different roles?
Yeah. I think calendar has been a big thing.
Yeah.
So like even if we're at this point now with the podcast, for example, I put it on the calendar that we're gonna film, like when we're gonna film it and all that kind of stuff, and I think that helps. Another thing is like I've slowly integrated or like been more verbal about from like 10 a.m. to 5 more or less. I am in work mode, and so you kind of just can't come up at me a certain way. Like you need
Yeah.
to figure out the right way to come up at me with stuff. And there's a lot of questions we'll ask each other now of like, we won't kind of just approach each other. We'll be more like, are you busy? Or I'll even just glance over and see whatever he's working on. And it's like, okay, I shouldn't bother this person right now. And vice versa. The calendar is like the big thing though.
Yeah.
And like
Okay.
sharing one.
This is your employee and your husband. Do you pay him a salary?
No, I don't pay him a salary, but all of his living and eating expenses are covered.
Now this is something
I
that
cover the cost of his existence, I
okay,
guess.
now this is okay.
Oh wait, I do give him a no wait, we pay each other so we do our running around money is $150 a month.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's I don't whatever you want to do with that money for each of us.
Okay. I don't want to get like into too much of the weeds of like content creator business, but
Sure.
you own an LLC. You
Yeah.
guys are just taking owner's draws. Do you pay yourself a salary?
So the 150 is what I like my fund money, if you will. But
Yeah.
yeah, every month I pay like a set amount into our joint account, and that covers
Yeah.
our rent, our cell phones, our health insurance, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it almost feels like, and so he is like getting an allowance. Like, I'm trying to figure out, like,
Sure. No, yeah, that's the right way. It's an allowance. Sure.
okay. And you have control, but
What
you
is
have
the
control
face?
over it. And no, I'm trying to figure out how this works, right? Because you have control over it.
I do. Yeah.
So your company is StumbleWell, and to incorporate, a company, you sign these documents. You have to get go to the bank and get the bank accounts and all of this stuff, and the people are signing, the managers of the LLC. You're a single manager.
Yeah, I'm a single member LLC. He can get into every account though. He is a
Yeah,
signer on all of the accounts for the company.
but it's your shit.
It's mine.
Okay,
But
okay.
I could log into Frost and it all be he could take it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, well, shit, but
But
yeah.
you would have a legal claim against it. I'm trying to get into, like, I think the thing that people get concerned about is like the, you know, who controls the money. I mean, is often a way to like control relationships and like
Okay, yeah.
there's just so much potential for conflict when one person has so much power and control.
Yeah.
You seem like a great level-headed, fair person, but are there ever conversations about, like, if one day you wake up and are like, hey, I'm out, like, where does that leave your husband?
Right. Good question. I mean, we don't have a prenup or anything like that, if that's what you're asking. And we've talked about it. We both feel like I mean, it's a sticky area. Legally, it is incredibly sticky. You are not wrong. I can justify that immediately. The way I like work through it in my mind is there is not an account that he does not have access to,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Even when he was the breadwinner, there was never an
Yeah.
account I could not get into.
Yeah.
And he's a signer on the company as well.
Yeah.
At some point, I have talked to him a few times about like, do you want to be a part owner of this? The only reason why it wouldn't be 50-50 is just because legally you get more, or tax, businessy things aside, you get more if the woman owns the majority of the company. That helps. And so I've talked to him about owning owning part of the company if he wants to. And he's always just like, it's your thing. I'm just happy. And that's where the conversations have gone thus far. But
Okay.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's sticky. If shit
Yeah.
ever hit the fan, it's sticky,
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
a lot of trust.
yeah, I mean, this does require a lot of trust, but also it also requires people to not be like because of my own trauma,
Oh,
I
okay.
I
Word.
am very cognizant about who owns what and who controls what. And I've been in, relationships and talked to people. And like a big red flag for me is people who talk about wanting to do business or wanting business advice, or no, I don't want to go into, no, I don't. I want everything to be separate. I don't even want you to know how much money I have. I have no dollar. I'm broke. I have $0 in my bank account,
Okay.
actually.
Wow.
And so I am fascinated.
But how
Do
can
you
you
think,
build with that? You can't build. Like not to push back, but there has to
no, no,
be
no,
some
I'm
level
open. I
of
love this. Yeah.
there has to be some level of trust in a marriage, because in other words, like, why'd you get married? Like, at a very base instinct, right? Moving love aside of all of that, right? You get married to have a partner, and it is a
Mm-hmm.
contractual agreement, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't, there has to be a certain level of trust. To me, it makes the most sense to have him be the only person who gets to sign off on my accounts. Like, if I don't trust my husband, then who the hell do I trust? You know? I trust him with
We're
my
getting,
life. I
we're,
got to be able to trust him with my money.
we're getting into therapy territory right now. But
Oh,
I
okay.
think that no,
Sorry.
I'm joking. No. I'm an open book. I think that for me, what the real difference is between my situation and your situation is I'm a 33-year-old person. I started for Harriet in my college dorm room when I was 21. It was just me. I was alone
Yeah.
shooting in the gym. Like, it's me. So if I meet somebody at 33 and a half, I've put in 12 years into this and I deserve it. It's like this is like it's me. I think I completely actually understand and admire where you're coming from and the way that the financial power and the financial decision making has tottered back and forth. The balances have gone up and down throughout the length of the over a decade that y'all have been together, because sometimes he's shouldering the financial burden, sometimes you are, I shouldn't say financial burden, that's a pejorative, but sometimes he's taking on more of the weight, sometimes you're taking on more of the weight, but you're always working together in order to achieve a long-term goal together from the time that you're in your early 20s to now you're in your 30s. That's like real building.
Yeah. I would
And
say we've talked about that, though, in regard, like, we've talked about, wow, what if we had met when I'm 30 and he was 32, 33? And yeah, he's already gotten a master's on his own. I've
yeah.
already started a company that's relatively successful on my own. That would change, I think. Like, I have friends who have be partnered up later in life around your age. And yeah, there are like they don't have their husband or wife as their beneficiary if they ever die. It's
Yeah.
nieces, nephews, it's other people that they're like, no, these people have relied on me well before you got here, and they need me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's different conversations. But I think for me, like, since like I could not have started my company without him.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the truth, so it's like, whether he is a part owner on paper or not, he is.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. If, knock on wood or whatever, if, tomorrow y'all decide that you're gonna consciously uncouple and your husband says, okay, I want exactly half of this, fair feminist Kimberly, would be like, you know what? Understandable. I got it, right? Like, they're from the beginning, building from the ground up. I'll make sure they don't use this in court. You know what I'm saying? But like that makes perfect sense to me. And I think that when people are projecting their fears onto you about who has what and who takes what and if you split or whatever, I think it's because, again, like a trauma response of, we have seen so many well-established, ambitious, successful women who built up their shit and were taking on all of the financial burden from the very beginning. Then things end, and then they still have to continue playing the role of breadwinner for somebody who didn't really contribute all that much from the start.
He jokingly says now, like, oh, now would be the good time to divorce you because, yeah, you make all the money. You'd probably owe me alimony for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not wrong. Yeah. I got skin in the game. This needs to work.
That is a real thing. I mean, again, like my mother had to pay her ex-husband alimony for many years. I mean, that's a real, like a very, real thing. I mean, he didn't deserve it, but whatever. We all make mistakes. But are you, now that you're moving forward, it seems like you guys are in a pretty good groove right now. Like things are going really well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I mean, we're still working through some kinks and things like that. Again, have I submitted to him an official like job role? No.
Yeah.
Do I need to? Yeah.
Do you have any other employees? It's just you two?
It's just us two. I mostly deal with contractors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's just like cool, like going with the flow.
For the most part. I mean, one thing about my husband is he will let you know if he's not happy about something. He's pretty communicative in that way. So, yeah.
How is the machismo? Has that, settled down? Because it seems like this is where y'all seems semi-permanent at this point.
It has settled down quite a bit. I think he's finally realized, like, I think he's still discovering what his value is outside of work in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's doing a lot better with that. Emotionally, it was, like, pretty hard for him in the beginning, though. He was really struggling with it.
Yeah. It was hard for him when he transitioned out of nursing and into supporting you in your business.
Yeah, and not because he didn't love
or
it.
Or is it your business? Do you refer to it as your business or y'all's business? Or you just said it was yours, but I'm not trying to be offensive.
No, it's fine. It's my business. And I think if you asked him, he'd be like, it's Hallease's business. Like, he very much, I think he's also very hyper conscious of like, women don't often get the acknowledgement of like what they are doing. And so he's very much like, it's her business.
Yeah.
I'm just here. She's the person who answers the questions. I don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very much of that. But it was, I think for him, it's been interesting because, yeah, he's finally learning to establish who he is outside of providing for somebody.
Yeah.
Or just redefining what providing means.
Man, okay. Yes, I love this. So I feel like because I like that when you like touch on things that I'm always kind of are swirling around in my head, because I feel like I think one of the selling points, not that I have to sell myself, but I think something that hopefully would be really appealing with whoever I decide to partner with is all of the stress and anxiety and inner turmoil and insecurity that living in a white supremacist patriarchal world puts onto the shoulders of men. So much of that is alleviated if you are partnered with somebody who says, I just like you, like I actually just like want to hang out and like be in love and have great experiences and support you in your dreams. I'm not here to sustain my lifestyle. And now, we've had mixed experiences with that. Some people can deal, some people can't. But
Yeah.
I think that the idea that this has freed up your husband of over a decade to just explore new parts of himself, like that feels, I don't know, that feels like real love, and like real care to me.
I mean, I don't like. I'm not trying to take on like. You don't need to think any more highly of me at all. At the core, it was more like you will be happier if certain things change.
Yeah.
How can I facilitate that?
Yeah.
Because like I'm in it with you. We have decided, that for the most part we're in it. So like this needs to be good for both of
Yeah.
us. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would definitely don't throw me into any sort of altruistic thing. But I do feel I do feel really happy to see how he has begun to discover like his writing and
Mhm.
just the stories he's putting out too. Part of me is also like, are you working through some past trauma through these writings? But also,
Yeah.
it's just been really exciting to just see him passionately work for something and not there not being too much of an ulterior motive of like I am going to this job to get a paycheck to do this and this. No, I'm writing because I love it,
Yeah.
and that's been really cool to see. Not many people get to do that in their lifetime. Do something that
Oh,
they love just to do it.
100%. Now that it seems he's developed all of these skills, that takes stuff off of your plate, or are you replacing the stuff that he has taken and just putting more stuff onto your plate?
It's probably the second one, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. Yeah, he's getting better at taking on more and more. So, like, again, he's editing the podcast. He's going to start editing the Trying to Be Somebody podcast season 2 that we're filming right now. He's going to be editing that too. But again, I'm like, ooh, now I have someone to edit this podcast. So now I can do this. So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not actually making my life easier. I'm just expanding what I do now.
Yeah. And so this feels like in 5 years,
Yeah.
will y'all still be working this way?
I hope not. And not because I don't want him to work with me, but one thing about Chris is he's a shield character.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll just do whatever is necessary or morph into whatever he feels is necessary to like maintain survival and overall happiness of everyone else. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is his fatal flaw, I would say. And so I find that my job as his partner is to enable him to prioritize himself more.
Mm-hmm.
I hope in 5 years he is an established writer and he's too busy to work with me. He's doing his
Yeah.
own thing. That's my goal. I don't actually want him to do this long term with me.
Yeah. Do you remember the conversation around Tabitha Brown and her husband?
Yeah.
And I think Wendy Williams might have ignited it by her stuff. But
She
then there's all
did.
this social media chatter about, well, I don't like Wendy, but she's right. Men can't, they need
See, I
to
didn't
feel.
hear that part. When did that part happen?
I mean, it might be because of the different kinds of content that we consume and make,
Okay.
but even under that video, the social media husbands video, there's many comments about that. Whenever I talked about it, there are so many. I mean, the big thing that people like to cite is, well, when the woman makes more in the relationship, there's a higher rate of divorce and the men cheat more, and like that's the thing. People trot those stats out to me all the time.
Okay.
And so it's like your husband's happiness and freedom. Okay, that's great. But also, if you want to preserve actually like being married, like the fabric and foundation of the marriage, then you should just go ahead and adhere to the norms that marriage was built on. That's basically the argument.
That sounds like a trap. That sounds like nobody wins in that. Is that? I don't.
I mean, what do you mean nobody wins?
I mean, nobody. So something like if you're genuinely not happy being the breadwinner, as a man, then like you're probably still gonna go cheat. Like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. I feel so. It's more. I just feel like it's more about trying to find a partner who will complement you,
Yeah.
and just like what your overall goals in life are. I don't know. I guess like I feel like if there's an like it sounds like the partners are in competition and they're not in collaboration with each
Right.
other, which does not make a good marriage for anyone. Like his success is my success is his success. When he got a master's, I was like, we got a master's. I
Yeah.
now have a master's because I was there the whole time. You know what I'm saying? It's obviously it's his master's, but like I now have that experience. Like to me, that is what it is. So I don't know. The idea of like trying to stick to traditional norms, if they're not working for you, then don't, you know? Readjust the relationship. That's the other thing. People change. Like, it's okay for y'all to change in your roles. Nobody said this stuff was finite. Everything's
Yeah.
made up. I don't know if y'all know that. Like, literally everything is made up.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I really am a stickler for fairness. I actually think that's one of the reasons why I'm a feminist. I just believe in like, let's just call it down the middle. And there's nothing that strikes me as particularly unfair or exploitative about someone at one point in your life saying, I got it, don't worry, do your thing. And then at another point in your life, the other person saying, don't worry, you're happy. If you're happy, I'm happy. Like, let's do this. I mean, I get it. I intellectually can understand the argument that people are trying to make. It just strikes me as not fair. The other thing I wanted to say about, people always say about when women make more, there's a higher rate of divorce, which, okay. I was also thinking about like, as a person who will jump from person to person to person, I think that one of the reasons why I can do that is because I am not attaching myself to anybody because my livelihood or the rest of my life depends on them. So it's like
yeah.
as soon as I see a red flag, oh baby, I'm out. No,
It's it's
and like,
also
yeah, okay, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's also interesting about like, oh, women who make more money have a higher rate of divorce because they have the capability to leave. Like in traditional marriage roles, if the man is the breadwinner and the social structures that we live in, you can't leave if you're in a heterosexual relationship. It becomes very difficult to do that. And so it's like, do women, like in heterosexual couples, if women make more money and there's a high rate of divorce, is that because there's something inherently wrong with the power dynamic? Or is it something of like, I am actually unable to leave? In the same way that countries that have like put a higher prioritization on women's education, for example, birth rates drop because they have more options now. Like it's not necessarily a negative, it's just a
Yeah.
marker of the society we're in my opinion.
100%. I was just outlining what a little hot take that I was going to put up about like, actually, divorce is good. Now, it's sad when things have to end and breakups are hard and the division of assets and children have to split their time. But the ability for people to amicably, hopefully, say, oh, we're not growing in the same. Oh, you know what? I was thinking about Tia Mowry. That's what I was thinking about.
Oh, yeah,
The
okay.
the ability for people to say, we had this great time together and we shared this life and we created these beings, but now it's time for us to go forth in the next chapter of our lives in a different way. That's like a good thing. It's a good thing to not have to be trapped and saddled and I don't know. This is the I guess the millennial individualism. We only care about happiness thing, but I do care about happiness a whole lot. Like happiness is more important to me than duty, but whatever. Yeah, I think that like it's a net positive. And I remember talking about this before, and somebody tweeted me some little hot take that I had, and she said, your video is actually making me think that the only reason why I want to get married is because I'm poor. And I thought, oh, yeah, like so much of our financial future still as people who partner men is, does he, that's my retirement plan, or that's how I'm going to have my rent paid. And I completely understand that. That's why we all need to be progressive and advocate for a more robust social safety net and access to healthcare and stuff, so that like so that we don't have to make those kinds of decisions. But right now that is many people's reality.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the last thing I want is for someone to be with me because they feel like they can't be with it, like go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like who wants to be with someone who actually isn't happy to be there with you?
Yeah.
That don't make no sense. I think for me, the thing that was very fascinating and how I knew our marriage was actually a benefit was when we were thinking about getting separated. And we kind of had a really hard conversation where it almost came to a head. I realized in that moment of like, I didn't regret the time.
Yeah.
At all. I think at that point we've been married 8 years or so. And I think I said it out loud to him. I was like, well, if this doesn't work out and this is the beginning of the conversations around the ending, how we're ending this, I don't regret the time that we've spent together. I've learned a lot about myself. I've grown as a person. I hopefully have facilitated your growth as well. This was successful. It did not stay as long, which I had to work through potentially my own like Christian dogma undertones on that, but like it didn't last as long as it was meant to. But I can't say I didn't gain anything from this relationship. I definitely did.
Yeah. When you are thinking about the potential obstacles that are between you and divorce, are you ever thinking about the legal or financial stuff at that point? Or is it just, we will be happier separated?
It was, I think when we were thinking about it, again, it was so much of a just like, are we even cool with each other anymore?
Yeah.
But there was still a respect. Like,
yeah.
Again, because we've been together so long, it was still one of those things of like, if this ends, you have access to all the accounts, so do I.
Yeah.
It's not like someone can really run away with the money. So, we hadn't gotten all the way. We also hadn't gotten to the point where we were like, who's moving out or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing was like, who gets the dog? Because we still had our dog at that point. Like, what are we going to do with Dakota? That was our
okay.
thought.
So if I, got into a relationship tomorrow and somebody came to me and was like, I'm laughing at this because it just would not happen. But this is the let's put on a hypothetical. I got into a relationship. I completely trusted my partner. He came to me and said, I'm all in on what you're doing, what you're building. I want to be of service. I want to help you build this up. I will gladly, leave my job and like be here so we can do that. Do you think that's a bad idea or a good idea?
Run it one more time for me. I'm like meditating on it. Give me one more again.
Okay. So 33-year-old Kim, we'll say I meet 40-year-old Jamal.
Okay.
And I'm using real names, but I mean 40-year-old Jamal. 40-year-old Jamal has had a great career. He's confident. I trust him. Yeah. We're in love. He says, you need help. I think I have what it would take to take this business, Kimberly Nicole Foster LLC, to the next level. Let me quit my job and come work for you full time so that I can be the person who loves and cares for you, but also knows exactly what you need to elevate this entire thing. Would it be a bad idea for me to say, well, he does know what he's doing, so let's just do it? Or would you counsel me and be like, oh, I don't think so?
I would counsel you and be like, why can't he just be your first employee, your first full-time employee? Why does he have to be a part owner? Just because you actually, again, when I started my company, I didn't have any assets.
Yeah.
I have 10 years of proof of Chris's like loyalty and commitment to
Yeah.
me, not really the company, but to me as a person. And so, yeah, that's where I'm coming from. When'd you meet this dude? You know what I mean? Like, that's my thought. Has he truly proven? I mean, in this moment, sure. But, like, I think the time helps, the longevity.
Do you think that I have to pay him?
Oh. I mean, no, if his immediate needs are met, like, we don't need to, like, truly quantify the value of human life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like if he's comfortable and his needs are met, like he's moved in with you and this and that, and you're just covering the bills, then like, is he stressed? Does he want to get paid?
Yeah.
That's just another conversation you need to have and figure it out.
Do you think that our genders are influencing your answer?
Oh, I mean, I don't live in a vacuum, so I'm sure they are to some point, you know?
Like, would you tell a woman, oh, you met this man, you're in love, you have all of these transferable skills that would help him really grow his business, create a lot of equity and value in his business, do the work for him, but don't expect any money?
Oh. Oh, you hit me up, drama. Dang. I guess, yeah. Then I guess the genders are happening. The genders are gendering because my immediate thought is like, go down. But the same thing. I just said, why doesn't he just get paid? Why does he have to be an owner? Why don't you just pay him a salary?
Honestly, I don't even want to pay the salary. But,
I mean, respect. I'm just saying in your scenario, is salary an option? You know?
Yeah, I mean, is salary an option? I have to work through that. Anyways, this was really useful, Hallease. Thank you so much for volunteering to go through the ins and outs of this. Okay, so back to the allowance thing. You are also, there's a set amount of money that both of y'all are both getting the same amount of money out of the company.
Yes. So $150 is like for
just
each
to
of
clarify.
us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, y'all are really living like a week, a month.
Oh no. So okay, I need to be specific. So there is a large sum every month that goes into our joint account.
Yeah.
Our joint account together, and that large sum covers our rent, our budget for food, eating out, all the streamers, like all that stuff. And then from that, I also put $150 in each of our separate, but we both still have access to those accounts, personal accounts for us to do whatever we want to do with.
Okay, man, because I don't want to be. No, okay, so when you're filing taxes,
it's fine.
No, because I have tax questions. I'm sorry, I just know how this works. Okay, so when you're filing your taxes, is Chris filing as he doesn't have income, or you're filing together? Oh, as a single person, I don't even really know how this works for real.
Yeah, we're filing. So we're married, so we're filing jointly.
Yeah.
So with that, at least to my understanding, the way that works is like what I make is his and what he makes is mine. Anyway, in the regards of taxing, it's like how much has this couple jointly made?
Yeah.
And we're gonna pull. So it doesn't really. There's not a breakdown of that. The struggle I actually have, real talk, is that for a while he kept going back to nursing, and I was like, just stay quit because you messing with the taxes. We have to pay more taxes now because he would have a W-2 job for a second.
Yeah.
And that would throw off the company stuff. So this is like the first official year this year of where he's like hasn't gone back to nursing at all, and we'll see what that looks like financially, tax-wise.
This is making me think that it's like, obviously, because we always talk about marriage as like a financial contract, it's like you can do the formal thing of creating, an LLC with somebody, or an S corp or whatever, and y'all are connected that way. But no matter what, y'all are always going to be, your finances are commingled because you're married.
Yeah, what I'd started to tell people when they would start to be like, well, what does Chris do and this and that? I started to be like, when you talk to someone who has a family business, what kind of language are you using? like a traditional brick and mortar family business. Usually, if
Yeah.
you actually look at those, one person actually owns it and everyone works for the business,
Yeah.
right? And they pay them a salary. Maybe that's on paper, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But like that's what they do. And so
Yeah.
it's a very similar model to that.
Have you looked into, sorry, this is getting really like nitpicky, like
No, it's
Kimberly
fine.
has lots of conversations with accountants.
Yeah.
Do you save money if he actually becomes a W-2 employee?
At this point, no, I don't
Yeah.
make enough. I am almost at the cusp with the company where it's about time to make it an S corp
Yeah.
officially and do the whole like what is it, dividends purses like your salary and like that
Yeah.
breakup and all that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
almost probably by like next year it'll be time to do that. I've talked to my accountant as well about it. And at that point, yeah, then we'll both be employees of the company and I'll make it really legit on that.
Oh.
But for
Oh,
now, no, it doesn't help.
okay. And just to round this out, you have no anxieties about the money stuff or the commingling or the, whatever. Like this is just your life. And it's like it's working for y'all.
Yeah, I mean, for now, it's working for us. I don't. I think. I mean, I think as a business owner, you can't not have any anxiety. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, there's always going to be some anxiety, but I've s- I've saved enough with the company that if shit ever hits the fan, shit can hit the fan, and we're still good for 6 months
Yeah.
before like, okay, we gotta like really figure some shit out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just how I live my life because scarcity mindset. But like, I know other business owners don't, but like that's how I live. So
Yeah. Oh, last question. Do you have work fights that turn into personal fights or personal fights that turn into work fights? And then how do you navigate that?
I think we have work fights that turn into personal fights. Because
Yeah.
again, I'm not a good boss. Like I
Yeah.
know I'm not doing the HR the way I should be doing the HR. So I think it's work fights that turn into personal fights, and
Yeah.
then I have
It's
to
given
like,
Ned. It's given. I'm just kidding.
no, please don't compare me to Ned, not that guy. Oh man, that hurts the soul a little bit. Please don't compare me to Ned. Do I need to work on
uh
me? Oh jeez.
no, I'm just kidding. Okay. That is it. Thank you so much. This was great. Also learned a lot, really thoughtful. I'll have to work through my financial trauma before I get partnered again. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all for having me as well. Appreciate it.
Yeah. At the bit where they're discussing the challenges of working together, it's not so unusual. Couples do work together in lots of sectors, law, etc. They're making it sound unnecessarily peculiar. I think
Ooh.
couples do work together. I think that what is peculiar and still maybe a little bit, we don't have the answers. We're not sway. I think it's the intersection of the societal gender norms and power dynamics with the intra business what word am I looking for, the financial stuff, right? Like that is still not the norm. Couples work together, but it's still not the norm where one person does have primary and maybe one might say complete control of the other person's financial future, personally and professionally.
It's
Or
also
what a woman has complete control personally and professionally of her male partner's finances. Okay, but sorry, keep going.
well, I was gonna mention now that you like say it that way, I'm like, oh, but are you taking into effect like, yeah, sure, I make the money, but are you taking into account like how much control he actually has over my life as well?
Mm,
Like, I don't know nothing about health insurance. He's the one that fixed all that out. I
mm-hmm.
don't know anything about our water bill. I don't know anything about our electric bill. All of those accounts are under his name. I think I have the logins. But like again, this is the
Oh,
coalescing of lives, you know? This is the
yeah.
like I make the money and therefore I guess like I'm not going to say I don't have a certain level of control, but I have also relinquished a lot of control of other aspects of my life to
You know
him.
what? It's almost like it's almost like
So
this setup makes it more even.
I mean, sure, if y'all.
It's all, I mean, you know, this is hot take, this is not a fully formed thought. But my
Okay.
first instinct is that you having a business that is doing well gives you maybe more leverage than a lot of women in hetero partnerships. Like, because a lot of times one person is like making the money and like overseeing all of the other stuff, and it's like y'all have a real partnership. Like y'all are like really like there's real like a real fair, equitable division of labor here that strikes me as pretty unusual. I do think that's honestly, I think women end up doing a lot of the labor and the planning and stuff, but maybe not making the most money. I think women just do more in hetero relationships. I don't think, I know. I mean, there's
Oh
data that
yeah.
bears that
I
out.
mean, they do. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think for me it's more like I could not tell you the ins and outs of our insurance plan. He has figured that out.
Wow.
I was the one that was like, guess I'm having this phone or whatever, and he was the one Verizon's having a deal where your phone is now switching to this.
Yeah.
Like he handles all of that stuff. I don't
Yeah,
touch none of
egalitarian, I
that.
think, is a great word. Wow. Now actually you're back to selling me on marriage again.
Sorry.
No, because that
Do
is I
you?
mean no, I mean like in a good way. I mean, there is I think a lot about, it's a lot to like run a whole household by yourself and
Girl.
schedule all of the appointments and the health insurance and the dental insurance and the dry cleaning and the bills and the I need to take my car to get fixed. That's a lot. I don't have
That's
the time.
yeah. He be doing the oil change stuff and
Yeah.
yeah. He buys the groceries. I don't. I have no idea what food comes into them. It is. It's that guy.
Yeah. No wonder we're all so sad and lonely in a post romantic coupling world, because we're doing too much work. This work is supposed to be shared.
I mean, yeah, I hope so. I will say we both grew into that egalitarianism.
Yeah.
It didn't start off that way.
Yeah. And
So
also I should say it doesn't have to be with a romantic partner. I could move in with my sister and do half the work.
totally, yeah.
I'm not doing that though. I don't want to see kids every day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. Follow Hallease. Go to her YouTube channel. I've been a fan, a follower, a Patreon member for a minute. Follow her on social media. And that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye.